students. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we begin our next topic in our Earth and Space Science series. And this topic, if you watch the introductory video, you know that this topic is biomes. And so that is our topic for this week, biomes. Now, you have an idea of what biomes are from that video yesterday, I am sure. And so we're going to take that knowledge of yours and we're going to apply it to writing our notes in our books today. So let's take a grand tour of the world as we explore this topic, biome. So before we get into that, let's just define one word here, and it is called biogeography. And if we dissect this word, we get a couple of different parts. Bio, as you know, refers to life or living things. Geo, as you recall from our last unit, refers to the earth. So bio-geo together refers to living things on the earth. And when a word ends in G-R-A-F-P-H, not F, P-H-Y, but it sounds like an F, biogeography is the study of these things. So biogeography can be defined as the study of where plants and animals live. Where on Earth is the geo, and the living things, plants and animals, refers to the bio. So biogeography, the study of where plants and animals live. And those locations where plants and animals live, we call biomes. And more specifically, biomes can be described not only where plants and animals live, but an area where there is a similar climate. Over the last couple weeks, we've been studying weather and climate, and we know that there are different parameters, different variables that exist around the Earth that produce certain climate regions that are similar around our planet based on their location on planet Earth. And it's these different specific climate regions that allow and attract certain organisms, certain plants and animals. So a biome is one of these areas that has a similar climate, similar plants, and similar animals. And throughout today's lesson, we're going to be talking or referring to plants as a flora, and we're going to be referring to animals as fauna. So flora and fauna are words that describe plants and animals. Now on this picture here, you'll notice a map of the entire world. And you'll also see that it's color-coded by different biomes that exist on planet Earth. And so we're going to discuss 6 of the major land biomes and 2 of the major water biomes. And let's see if you can figure out which biome you live in, according to the fauna, the flora, in the climate region that is similar to what you see when you look out your window every day. So let's get started with the 6 major or basic land biomes. We're going to start near the poles and work our way down toward the equator. So number 1 land biome is called a tundra. Tundra. And this is a picture of a typical tundra, and tundra are found in Arctic regions. You might want to also make a note in your notes, however, that they're found in Arctic and Antarctic regions. Arctic usually refers to regions around the North Pole. Antarctic refers to areas around the South Pole, but the tundra can literally be found both in the northern and the southern hemispheres, so both Arctic and Antarctic regions. Now, as we discuss each of these major biomes, we're going to talk about the climate, the flora, and the fauna. Let's begin with the climate. As you can probably imagine, tundra regions or the tundra biomes are very cold and dry. Based on our discussion on climate from last week, this is of no surprise to you. Very cold and very dry. And so, as we discuss each of the climate parameters with these biomes, we're going to be discussing, as you can probably think about from last week, we're going to be incorporating temperature and precipitation. That's going to be really important for you to remember as we get closer to our lab activity on Thursday this week as well. So, keep in mind, climate is referring to temperature and precipitation, and the biome itself incorporates fauna and flora. So let's discuss the flora of a tundra region. Now, obviously, during the winter time in the tundra, likely there are no major plant species, but both the Arctic and the Antarctic regions do experience a brief warm period, a very short summer, excuse me, and so in the tundra biome there can be certain flora which grow and develop. Some examples of these, and I'll try and have some samples of these out in the lab for you to see in real life as well, if you're in person. But some examples of flora include lichen, grasses, and flowers. Probably not the kind that you see out your window, but lichen, grasses, and flowers that grow very quickly during the short summer season in the tundra region. All right, now that brings us to the fauna, or the type of animals that exist in the tundra region. Typically, they're going to be small animals like lemmings, and you can see a couple of pictures here of lemmings. They're kind of like cute, itty-bitty little mice. To me, they kind of look like a cross between a mouse and a little bunny rabbit. But they're very small organisms. They don't require a lot of energy, food energy, in order to survive. And another major fauna in tundra regions are migratory birds. And when we talk about migratory birds, you may recall from earlier topics, migration involves the movement of large masses or populations of animals from one place to another. And migratory birds take advantage of the very brief warm seasons in the tundra, and then when things get really cold, they move out. They go to more southern biomes where they can live out their lives. So the major fauna in tundra biomes include lemmings and migratory birds. And if you look at this map here, I almost said mice. If you look at this map here, you'll notice this region of the Arctic, which includes the northernmost regions of North America, Europe, and Asia. This is where the majority of Earth's tundra regions can be located. So that brings us to number 2, the coniferous forest. The coniferous forests are also known as the North Woods. You may hear them referred to as the North Woods, but scientifically we refer to them as the Coniferous Forest. And think about that word coniferous. That's going to come into play here in a moment when we talk about plants. All right, first, climate. The climate of the coniferous forests of the world are also cold and dry. Take a notice of this map, I should say, and you'll see there is some overlap between the tundra to the far north and the coniferous forest. So there is some overlap here, but the coniferous forests do extend a little bit further south in the northern hemisphere. Incidentally, with global warming, these regions are extending further north into the tundra, as the tundra biomes are probably warming up faster than any of the other biomes on planet Earth. And so these coniferous forest biomes are extending further and further into the tundra regions every year. In fact, who knows, by the time you're my age, there may not even be any tundra left on planet Earth. But coniferous forests, cold and dry. Now, here's where this biome gets its name. The flora, the predominant flora in a coniferous forest are cone bearing trees. Do you see the similarity in the words cone bearing and coniferous? I hope you do. So, what are cone bearing trees? Well, think of Christmas trees: spruce trees, hemlock trees, fir trees, pine trees. These are all cone bearing trees, but the species that tolerate the cold the best are the ones that you're going to find in a coniferous forest. So, what kind of animals do you see in a coniferous forest? Well, have you ever seen the movie Frozen? That kind of takes place in this type of a tundra. Moose are a good example of the largest fauna or animals that exist in the coniferous forest. But the lynx, the beaver, these are typically the most predominant, notable species of animals that we call fauna in the coniferous forest. You may also see on occasion Olaf the talking snowman being built and moving around in the coniferous forest as well. But let's move on to our next biome, which is the deciduous forest. The deciduous forest is also known as the temperate forest. Now, when we use the word temperate here, what we're referring to is a temperate climate. Think about last week's topic. A temperate climate is one that experiences seasons, the different seasons of the year: winter, spring, summer, fall. The deciduous forests of the world are those that experience the full array of seasons on planet Earth. Now, if we look at the map here, you'll see the distribution of deciduous forests are across the majority of the eastern part of the United States here in North America, and much of Europe and some other parts of Asia as well. But they are found typically in the mid latitudes, where seasons are dominant as far as climate. And so the climate of deciduous forests are described as seasonal. You can have both warm and cold, and also moderate precipitation. Kind of ran out of room there to write that down, but the climate of deciduous forests are seasonal: warm and cold. Warm during the summer, cold during the winter. There's a variety of seasonal changes that take place. And this picture of a forest here probably looks familiar to most of you. When we talk about the flora or the type of plants in a deciduous forest, we're talking about, well, trees with leaves. And another word for trees with leaves is deciduous trees. Deciduous trees are those that lose their leaves in the wintertime. And we've got plenty of those located around here where we live. And so we are very familiar with a deciduous forest because this is the biome that most of us live in. If you're watching this video, you're probably a student here and you probably live in the deciduous forest. So, what are the fauna or the animals that exist? Well, many mammals and many birds. We have quite a variety of animals as well as plants, but we have a vast array of animal species or fauna that exist in a deciduous forest. So we have a nice, I think, we have a nice variety. It's not the most biodiverse location on Earth, but we've got a nice variety of fauna and flora in deciduous forests. All right, that brings us to number 4. Number 4 are the tropical rainforests. They used to be called jungles, but we don't call them jungles anymore. But if you read old literature, you might come across the word jungle. But a jungle is a tropical rainforest. And by its very name, you can imagine where tropical rainforests are located around the equatorial or the tropical regions of planet Earth. Here in South America, Africa, Asia, these green areas here are all located near the equator in tropical regions. And you know from climate that the climate of tropical regions on our planet are pretty much hot and wet all year round. They don't really have much in terms of seasonal variation because of the direct rays of the sun are constantly shining on the equatorial or tropical regions of our planet. And because of that, it's pretty much always hot and it's always wet because of that uplifting convection currents that produce the plentiful supply of precipitation. So, what are some of the plants that you find? Well, the flora of tropical rainforests, as you can imagine, are tropical trees and other tropical plants. This picture here shows a pretty typical example of a tropical rainforest where there are certain very lush green species of trees that stay green year round and a plentiful supply of water. And because of that constant climate of the tropical rainforest, there is a great diversity of life. These are the most diverse, various, plentiful supply of organisms across our planet. There are more species of plants and animals that exist in the tropical rainforests than anywhere else on Earth because of the constant supply of heat energy and precipitation. So they're a great place to go if you're a biologist and you want to study the diversity of life. Tropical rainforests are for you. And if you're like me and you don't like winter anymore, I know the more my facial hair looks like snow, the less I like snow. But if you don't like snow, then you should go to a warmer biome. But that's a topic for another day. All right, number 5. Number 5 are the grasslands. How many of you have ever watched The Lion King? If you've ever seen The Lion King, then you know something about grasslands. Grasslands, there are different kinds of grasslands. Some are called savannas. Savannas are typically warmer grasslands at lower latitudes. And we also have the Great Plains, which you might be familiar with, which are generally found at higher latitudes. But in grasslands, no matter what kind of grasslands you have, although there are some extremes, most grasslands are going to be somewhat moist to provide enough precipitation for the plentiful grasses and somewhat temperate. Somewhat temperate. They're not located near the tundra, they're not located near the tropics, but somewhere in between. And so if you look at our map here, there's a lot of diversity in the location of grasslands. We've got the Great Plains of the United States and North America, and we've got the plains in the South America temperate latitudes, as well as in Africa and Europe and Asia, even Australia. In fact, grasslands are found pretty much in most places or most continents on planet Earth. The dominant flora, as you can probably guess from the name, are grasses, different types of grasses. Now, when we talk about grasses in the grassland biome, we're not talking about your front or backyards. There are many different varieties and species of grasses than what you mow every week during the summer. In fact, most of the grasses in these grasslands are much taller grasses that produce grains and fiber, and they are producers that these species of animals entirely depend upon. So the fauna of grasslands is also rather diverse. You can have small and large mammals in the grasslands. Uh, the world's largest animals, land animals that is, are typically found in grasslands. Elephants, the rhinos, giraffes. When you think of African wildlife, you might immediately think of animals that you see in the movie Lion King, which takes place in the African savanna, which are the grasslands of that continent. So the grasslands are pretty productive in terms of its flora and fauna, just not as productive with variety as the tropical rainforests are. All right, that brings us to number 6. Our number 6 major land biome are the deserts. Deserts, as you can imagine, are arid areas. And the word arid means dry. Look at our map here. The driest locations on our planet, like Death Valley, the Sahara Desert, Kalahari and Gobi deserts, the Australian deserts, all of these regions of the earth that are really, really dry are called deserts. And so the climate of a desert, as you recall from last topic, are very dry and they typically have extreme temperatures. Because they're so dry, they don't have a lot of clouds in the sky. And without those clouds in the sky creating a thermal blanket at night, all that heat energy goes into space. And so deserts can be cold at night and hot during the day. Most people, when they think of deserts, just think it's hot all the time. Well, it's not necessarily the case because at nighttime, there's nothing to keep the heat in. It just dissipates like mad. So there are extreme temperature changes in deserts. So what kind of flora or plants might you find in a desert? Well, Only those plants that are adapted to very little water. Probably the most famous, most common plant that you think of when you think of deserts are cactuses or cacti. A cactus has a very thick cuticle or waxy outer coating that makes it superbly waterproof. And so, any water that does fall during the course of the year, the roots of these cactus just suck it up like a straw and hold on to that water as much as it can throughout the year. So the body of a cactus is like one really well designed canteen that holds on to the water and doesn't allow it to evaporate out of the plant, which we call transpiration. We'll learn more about that when we get to plants in life science. But the bottom line is the flora have to be adapted to very little water. You're not going to find a tropical tree growing in a desert environment because there's just not even close to being enough moisture to support the life of a tropical plant. What kind of animals do you find in a desert environment? Well, my two favorites here are the coyote and roadrunner. I just love the coyote and roadrunner. The coyote is a super genius, and I love the gadgets that he comes up with to try and catch the roadrunner. And I just love the roadrunner and how fast the roadrunner is. A little secret about me, I actually have a Roadrunner collection in my house with over 600 different kinds of Roadrunner items, little memorabilia. I know it's unusual, but it's true. In fact, I have one right here. Here's one of my many Roadrunner toys that I have. But I just love the Roadrunner. Meet me. All right. In fact, I'll probably show you a video of the Roadrunner evading, escaping, running away from the coyote, just so that you can see the desert climate biome. All right, so those are the 6 major land biomes that we are going to discuss here this week. And I think we're going to call it quits for now with this particular video. Be sure to study the names of these biomes, the climate, the flora and fauna of each. And so for now, I'm going to say bye-bye.